Have you ever wondered why the exact same comment can slide off another person like water, while it gets stuck inside your chest and keeps replaying in your head for days? Have you ever noticed that what finally breaks you is rarely the event itself, but the endless inner voice that will not stop chewing it? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about something that feels sharp, honest, and strangely freeing once you see it clearly. When your emotions go out of control, it is often not because you are weak. It is because, in that moment, you do not have enough usable wisdom to digest what is happening. And there is a second idea that can save your life if you really practice it. Happiness is not a gift that only lucky people receive. Happiness is a skill. It can be trained. It can be cultivated. It can be protected. The more you practice, the more stable it becomes. And the more clearly you can see your own fate changing through cause and effect. Let me bring you into a scene that makes this real. Imagine a person who is insulted, punished, thrown into a harsh place, isolated, misunderstood, and watched. If you or I were dropped into that kind of situation, most of us would say life is over. But there is a type of person who does something different. They do not deny the pain. They do not pretend it is fine. They do not perform optimism. Instead, they gather the mind back from the outside world, and they hold it steady from the inside. That steadiness is not personality. It is practice. It is cultivation. It is the work of awakening in real life. A famous example from Chinese history is Wang Yangming. He was beaten, imprisoned, and exiled to a remote and harsh region. Most people would collapse, become bitter, or spend every day fantasizing about revenge and fairness. But he did something that looks almost impossible until you understand the method. He turned the suffering into training. He used hardship as the pressure that reveals where the mind is still clinging, still afraid, still addicted to control. In that pressure he practiced returning to the present, returning to conscience, returning to clarity, returning to the heart that does not have to be dragged by every outer condition. Now you might be thinking, that sounds like a special person. That sounds like ancient philosophy. But I want you to feel how close this is to your own day. Most modern suffering looks different on the surface, but inside it is the same machine. You wake up and before your feet touch the floor, your mind is already gone. It is in messages. It is in comments. It is in comparison. It is in money worries. It is in workplace pressure. It is in a conversation from 10 years ago that still stings. Your body is here, but your mind is in the past and future, running back and forth like an exhausted messenger who never gets to rest. When the mind is scattered, energy becomes scattered. When energy becomes scattered, emotions become unstable. Your inner world becomes like water hit by wind. You cannot make it calm by force, because force is just more wind. This is why the more you try to control your emotions directly, the more exhausted you become. You are trying to calm the water by slapping it. So what is the real solution? The real solution is to gather the mind back. Gathering the mind back is not a slogan. It is a daily training. It is what Buddhist practice calls mindfulness on right attention. It is what many wisdom traditions call returning to the root. It is what I want to call, in plain language, bringing yourself home. Because look at what happens when you do not bring yourself home. One person says something careless, and you replay it for hours. You replay it in the shower. You replay it while driving. You replay it when you are eating. You are physically alive, but your mind is trapped in a loop. And the loop does not just create suffering. The loop also steals your ability to respond wisely. It steals your intelligence. It steals your compassion. It steals your patience. Then you say something sharp to someone who did nothing wrong. Then you create another conflict. Then you feel guilty. Then you try to fix it. Then you get tired. Then you snap again. This is not random. This is karma in the most practical sense. A chain of causes and effects that begins with an untrained mind. Now let me tell you a story that was shared in the tradition around Wang Yangming, because it points straight at the heart of this teaching. One day, one of his students fell ill. Not a small illness, the kind that breaks the spirit as much as the body. The student was discouraged. The student felt that the world had become too heavy. Wang Yangming did not start with fancy speeches. He did not pretend it was easy. He asked in a direct and human way, "Facing this kind of suffering is hard, right?" The student admitted, "Yes, it is hard." That moment matters, because it is what modern therapy also understands. You begin by admitting reality. You do not start by forcing positivity. You start by saying the truth. This is hard. I am afraid. I feel overwhelmed. My chest is tight. My mind will not stop. Then Wang Yangming said something that sounds simple but is actually extremely demanding. Keeping a joyful heart is training. Not pretending to be happy. Not performing smiles. Training the mind so it can stay steady inside wind and waves. A person who can swim is not someone who lives in calm water. A person who can swim is someone who has trained the body and breath and attention so that even in rough water they can keep moving without drowning. The ocean did not become kind. The person developed skill. This is what wisdom means here. Wisdom is not memorizing quotes. Wisdom is the ability to digest life without turning every moment into poison. So where does that wisdom come from? It comes from observation. It comes from mindfulness. It comes from returning attention from the outside back to the inside. It comes from repeatedly pulling yourself out of the emotional whirlpool before it becomes speech and action. And this is exactly why I said at the beginning that emotional collapse is often a signal that wisdom is not available in that moment. It is not a moral condemnation. It is a practical diagnosis. Your mind does not have enough clarity to process what is happening, so it uses the old tools: rumination, comparison, blame, catastrophizing. Those tools feel familiar, but they do not digest anything. They only stir the same pain again and again. Now, I want to guide you through this the way I would guide a friend, not like a lecturer. I want you to imagine an normal morning. You wake up, and the first thought appears, "Today is going to be terrible." Or, "I am behind." Or, "I cannot handle this." Or, "I already know how this will go." That thought feels like truth, but it is actually a projection. It is your mind being grabbed by the future. Before anything happens, you are already paying interest on suffering you have not even received. This is one of the most common ways people destroy their own peace. So what would a trained mind do? A trained mind would not fight the thought with another thought. Fighting creates more tension. A trained mind would do something simpler and much more powerful. It would put the mind back on the ground. It would say, "Right now I am washing my face. Right now I am brushing my teeth. Right now I am drinking water. Right now I am putting on clothes." This does not mean you ignore responsibilities. It means you train the mind to stop time traveling as a reflex. Because when you constantly time travel, you lose your own life. You lose your breath. You lose your body. You lose the present moment. And the present moment is the only place you can actually act wisely. You might say, "I cannot control my mind. My mind keeps racing." So I want to change one word for you. Stop saying control. Control makes you tense. Control makes you feel like you must wrestle the mind. Wrestling never ends. Use a different word. Notice. The mind races. You notice. Oh, worry is here. The mind compares. You notice. Oh, comparison is here. The mind imagines other people's opinions. You notice. Oh, mind reading is here. This noticing is the beginning of awakening. Because the moment you can notice, you are not fully possessed. You are no longer drowning inside the thought. You are standing at the edge of the river watching it move. This is what mindfulness really is. It is not a brand. It is not aesthetic. It is the ability to see what is happening without immediately becoming it. And here is the strange magic of it. Except it is not magic. When you can watch anxiety, anxiety becomes less terrifying. It may still be present, but it no longer owns you completely. That space is where wisdom starts to appear, because wisdom requires space. Now, let us go deeper into why emotions become so overwhelming. Most people think emotion is the enemy, but emotion is information. Emotion is the body's signal that something matters. Anger says a boundary was crossed, or you feel disrespected, or you feel powerless. Fear says uncertainty is present, or you feel unsafe, or you are anticipating pain. Sadness says something precious was lost, or you need comfort, or you need to release. Emotion is not the problem. The problem is the story engine that attaches to emotion. A person feels anger. Then, the mind says, "This proves they never respected me. This proves nobody cares. This proves the world is unfair. This proves I always lose. This proves I must fight. This proves I should cut everyone off." Now anger becomes a whole universe. Not because the event was huge, but because the mind inflated it with endless narration. So if you want emotional stability, you do not start by suppressing emotion. You start by reducing the story fuel. This is also deeply Buddhist. The teaching says suffering is not only pain. Suffering is clinging. Clinging to how things should be. Clinging to being right. Clinging to being admired. Clinging to control. Clinging to a fixed identity. When those clinging points are touched, emotion erupts. So the practice becomes, notice the clinging. You are not only angry that someone interrupted you. You are angry because your mind says, "I must be respected." You are not only sad because a plan changed. You are sad because your mind says, "Life must follow my script." You are not only anxious because of uncertainty. You are anxious because your mind says, "I must know." Once you see this, you can begin to loosen it. Loosening does not mean becoming passive. It means becoming free. Freedom is the opposite of emotional slavery. Now, there is another scene from Wang Yangming that carries enormous power. During his exile, he built a stone coffin. That sounds extreme. Why would someone do that? Because he realized the deepest obstacle was not the world. It was his attachment to self, his fear of death, his fear of humiliation, his fear of losing everything. Those fears tighten the mind, and a tight mind suffers more than necessary. So he used a dramatic reminder. If I can accept mortality, I can stop being terrorized by small losses. If I can loosen my grip on self, I can stop being destroyed by insult and uncertainty. In Buddhism, this is very familiar. Clinging to self is called self-grasping. It is considered a root of suffering. The more you protect the ego, the more fragile you become. The more you loosen ego, the more stable you become. Now, let me translate that into your life. When you suffer, what hurts most is often not the event. It is the phrase, "It should not be like this. I should have been respected. I should have been chosen. I should have been praised. I should have been loved. They should have understood me. The world should be fair. This should not happen to me." That should is the ego writing a script and demanding reality obey it. When reality refuses, your mind burns. So wisdom practice is learning to see the should and gently release it. Not release responsibility. Release the script. Because reality is always changing. And a mind that insists on fixed scripts becomes a mind that suffers constantly. This is where another great figure helps us understand the same movement. Sushi, after enormous political and personal setbacks, went to read Cliff and looked at the wind and the moon. He wrote about how the wind and moon belong to everyone, endlessly. It is like he turned from me back into the vastness of life. That turn is one of the most powerful emotional medicines. When you stop making yourself the center of the universe, you stop being stabbed by every little thing. Not because you become numb, but because you become spacious. Spaciences is not emptiness in a cold sense. Spaciences is room for compassion, room for patience, room for perspective. Perspective is wisdom. And wisdom is exactly what emotions need to calm down. Now let us talk about a practice you can do in the exact moment your emotions start to rise. When you feel the heat coming, do not rush into explanation. Do not rush into self-blame. Do not rush into proving. Do one thing first. Switch the word I to beings. If your mind says, "How could they do this to me?" change it to, "What confusion and suffering might be driving them to act like this?" If your mind says, "I failed again," change it to, "Every human being stumbles while learning. I am not the only one." This is not making excuses for harm. This is freeing your heart from poison. This is compassion. And compassion is not weakness. Compassion is clear seeing. It sees causes and condition. It sees that people act from ignorance, fear, and craving. It sees that hatred only burns the person holding it. So when you practice this switch, you are loosening the knot of self-centeredness. You are reducing the fuel. And as fuel reduces, emotion becomes manageable. This is how wisdom becomes usable in real life. Now I want to bring in another theme that is extremely practical, and it is about desire. Wan Yangming said something like, "In real practice, do not aim to add more. Aim to reduce. Reduce selfish desire, and you restore clarity." That is one of the cleanest truths about emotional suffering. Many people's pain is not because they lack something. Many people's pain is because they want too much, too fast, in too many directions. Desire is not only about money or romance. Desire is also the hunger for approval, the hunger for certainty, the hunger for being ahead, the hunger for being special. Desire becomes a bottomless pit. You fill it with achievement, then it demands more. You fill it with praise, then it demands more. You fill it with attention, then it demands more. The more it demands, the more anxious you become, because you can never rest. That restlessness turns into irritability. Irritability turns into conflict. Conflict turns into consequences. This is again karma, not as religious threat, but as cause and effect through habit. So wisdom includes knowing how to stop. The Taoist line says, "Know contentment and you avoid humiliation. Know where to stop and you avoid danger." In modern life, the inability to stop is a major reason people lose emotional control. They keep pushing, scrolling, comparing, chasing. The nervous system never returns to baseline. So a practice that changes everything is learning to pause and ask one simple question. Is this choice making me clearer or more confused? Is this choice making me kinder or more bitter? Is this choice making me freer or more bound? That question sounds spiritual, but it is extremely practical. Because fate is not a sudden event that drops from the sky. Fate is what your repeated inner choices build day by day. If today you feed greed, tomorrow anger rises easily. If today you feed comparison, tomorrow shame rises easily. If today you feed resentment, tomorrow your speech becomes sharp. If today you feed kindness, tomorrow your heart becomes softer. If today you feed mindfulness, tomorrow you notice sooner. That is how destiny is made. One breath, one choice, one thought you decide not to worship. Now I want to bring this into a more intimate and human part. Because many of you listening have a certain kind of suffering that is hard to explain. Nothing huge is happening, but you are not happy. You have people who care about you, but you still feel empty. You know you should be grateful, but you keep criticizing. You know you should calm down, but your mind keeps racing. If that is you, listen gently. It does not mean you are a bad person. It often means your mind has been pulled outward for too long. Pulled by screens, pulled by comparison, pulled by constant stimulation, pulled by expectations, pulled by fear of falling behind. A mind pulled outward becomes tired. A tired mind becomes numb. A numb mind becomes irritated. An irritated mind becomes explosive. Then you judge yourself. Then you explode again. That is a very common loop. So what do? You begin returning. Returning is the beginning of awakening. Returning means you stop asking the world to provide the stability you have not trained inside yourself. Returning means you build a small inner anchor. And the anchor is not complicated. It is attention. It is breath. It is one simple moment done fully. You drink one sip of water, and you actually drink it. You take one step and you feel the foot. You speak one sentence to a loved one and you look at their eyes. You eat one bite and you taste it. This sounds basic. It is basic, but it is also advanced, because most people cannot do it. Their mind runs away immediately. And that running away is the root of so much emotional instability. When you practice doing one thing fully, you reclaim your attention. Attention reclaimed becomes energy reclaimed. Energy reclaimed becomes steadiness. Steadiness becomes wisdom. Wisdom becomes emotional digestion. This is the ladder. Now, let me share something personal in the tone of this channel, because I want you to feel less alone. There was a season when my emotions felt like clouds pressing down. I woke up not with gratitude, but with anxiety. How much do I need to do? What do people think? Am I behind? That anxiety was not a single problem. It was a habit of mind. And the habit looked like strength. It looked like responsibility. It looked like ambition. But inside it was fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being left behind. Fear of being judged. Fear of wasting life. So I did not need more motivation. I needed more wisdom. And wisdom arrived through very small changes. Eating without a phone. Walking without checking messages. When emotion rose. Not rushing into explanation. But first admitting, I am not okay right now. That admission was like creating a drain in a flooded room. The pressure had somewhere to go. And once pressure had somewhere to go, clarity began to return. I noticed that many of my emotional storms were not caused by the situation. They were caused by my refusal to be with discomfort. I would rush to fix, rush to analyze, rush to plan, rush to escape. But discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is a teacher. If you can sit with it for a moment, it often transforms. Not always, but often enough to change your life. I also saw this in a friend who worked extremely hard. People admired him. They called him disciplined. But he knew the truth. He was afraid. Afraid of being replaced. Afraid of not being needed. Afraid that if he slowed down, he would feel empty. Then his body sent a warning. A real warning. And a doctor said something that woke him up. If you keep living like this, the money you earn will be used to buy time you cannot buy back. That line is harsh. But sometimes harsh truth is compassion. It forces you to stop lying to yourself. When my friend began practicing stopping, actually stopping, not quitting life, but stopping the inner whip, he discovered something he had forgotten. The feeling of being safe without proving anything. That feeling is what many people are really chasing. They think they want success. They actually want permission to relax. Wisdom gives that permission from inside. Now, I want to tie this back to the core teaching of this story. Emotions out of control often mean wisdom is not available. So your goal is not to become emotionless. Your goal is to increase your wisdom capacity. Capacity means you can hold more without collapsing. You can be criticized without exploding. You can be misunderstood without becoming bitter. You can be delayed without panicking. You can be disappointed without falling into despair. That is capacity. And capacity is built the way muscles are built. Repeated small training. Not perfection. Consistency. You do not need to become a saint tonight. You only need to become 1% more awake than yesterday. 1% more present. 1% more compassionate. 1% more willing to stop feeding the story. Because that 1% is a seed. And seeds become forests. Now I want to leave you with a simple evening practice that fits this teaching. Before you sleep, put your phone farther away. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath. In your mind, say a simple sentence. I return to the present. Then do not force anything. Just feel your breath. Feel the weight of your body. If thoughts come, notice them. If emotions come, notice them. Do not fight. Do not cling. Just return. Again and again. To the breath. This is not small. This is how happiness becomes skill. This is how wisdom becomes usable. This is how karma becomes lighter. Because the more you can return, the less you are dragged. The less you are dragged, the fewer harmful words you speak. The fewer harmful words you speak, the fewer conflicts you create. The fewer conflicts you create, the smoother your path becomes. People call that good luck, but it is often the fruit of cultivated wisdom. Now I want to hear from you. What emotion has been carrying you away most often lately? Is it anxiety? Is it resentment? Is it anger? Is it that quiet emptiness you cannot explain? And have you had a moment where you suddenly realized you were fighting yourself more than you were fighting the world? Write your story in the comments. I read more than you think, and I may bring some of your stories into future videos so others can feel less alone. If this video helped you even a little, subscribe to the channel. Like the video so it reaches the people who are quietly drowning in their own thoughts. And if you want to support long-form content like this, you can comment, share, and join the membership so we can keep making deep practical teachings about awakening, wisdom, compassion, practice, and destiny. Thank you for spending this time with me. Keep returning. Keep practicing. A calmer fate is not something you wait for. A calmer fate is something you cultivate.
At the end of the day, we all need something that brings us back to ourselves. Something that reminds us to slow down, breathe, and stay centered. Simple bracelet can do exactly that. Every bead you touch brings your mind back to calm, back to clarity, back to the present moment. If one of the bracelets you just saw resonates with you, you can find the purchase link in the video description and explore more beautiful styles in our channel store. Let the one meant for you find its way to your wrist.